Well, funny story, y'all. When I originally planned to make this video back in late March, it was going to be unscripted because I know how much you guys love my unscripted content. However, when I was futzing around in OBS trying to intentionally lower the quality of my mic in a tasteful way, I may have gone a bit overboard without realizing, and for all my troubles, I ended up sounding like this.
Good golly, do I love exploiting old trends and dying formats for my own personal gain.
This happened because I had my headphones off while recording voiceovers, because hearing my voice played back to me causes me to drastically slow my talking speed, and I end up sounding drunk. So I didn't know I sounded like this until I listened to the final recording. And because I would rather not subject my audience to an hour and a half of me trying to order a boneless pizza or gluten-free bread, this is a scripted video now. Whoopsie. Anyways, this is really just a video I'm making to fulfill the quota all very specific niche creators have to make for their specific media of choice. You know the ones. Iceberg charts, scandal investigations / documentations. And the one I've chosen for this video, a tier list. This fad's been dead for a while now in the grand scheme of things, but it's fun to make these. And it should be a relatively quick upload in between my previous character biopics and my upcoming full series analysis. And, well, I love to ramble on about things I love and don't love about my favorite piece of media, and this is the best format to do so. The tier list I am using for this occasion was created by Ivina J. Spider, which, if you're a part of the community and aren't following them or the projects they lead, you are missing out. The tiers are from S to F, like always. Succulent Sad AM, Astounding Ancillary, Beautiful Broadcast, Contempt Cold Open, Dawdling Direct-to-Video, and Friday Night Death Slot. There won't be any fancy conditional reasoning for why I placed what episodes where. This is just one big, generalized, opinionated list. And this also means that things are very fluid and the exact placement of where an episode is in the tier it's been given doesn't matter too much. However, I do have a few rules I've put in place for this list, mostly to help keep things categorically simple. The first rule is that all multi-part episodes will be judged individually, but ranked as a unit. So, example, for a Devil episode like the Kirby Derby, my opinions on each part will affect where both episodes end up being ranked, rather than having each part in completely different tiers, as I think this is unfair to the two-part nature of these stories. And for the record, this also does include the 5-part movie. Rule number 2 is that I will be making my calls based on the English dub. Being a filthy American, I have not seen the original Japanese sub, so any case where the sub version may be better for whatever reason will mostly not be accounted for. You are welcome to enlighten me on this in the comments if you so please. And rule 3 is the catch-all, the Captain Obvious. My list, my opinion, you're free to disagree, all that. You probably hear this a million times if you're a regular tier list connoisseur, but I digress. Additionally, I am allowed to omit specific topics in my reasoning to make my upcoming full series analysis more engaging. I don't want to plug this stupid tier list video every time I make a point about something I said here. Realistically, this shouldn't be brought up much, hence why it's more of an afterthought than a stated rule. Well, there's nothing left to do but get started, folks, and we're going to get right into it with the first episode. Kirby comes to Cappytown. This one's weird to me. It's so characteristically different from the rest of the series that's not easy to explain. Very good first episode outside of that, though I'm hesitant towards giving it an S. It would only really earn it out of status, which feels disingenuous. However, it is very good at what it does, being a first episode. A blockbuster battle. This one suffers very heavily from a usual case of early episode syndrome. Mediocre action, but that's justified because the audience is meant to be learning by this point. And that leads me into the big topic of how bogged down this episode is by it being made for people who don't know anything about Kirby. That's a problem with the whole series, though, even if this is the biggest offender of that. And since it's a problem with the series as a whole, I'm not going to let that factor too heavily against this episode. So it's just going to get an A. Kirby's dual role. Instant S, and not just because of Meta Knight. Okay, well, mostly because of Meta Knight. This has a special place because it showcases Kirby Right Back At Ya's insane skill at animating fight scenes. They're different from other popular anime at the time that focused more on being flashy and having cool attacks. They do still have that, but it's a lot less important here. By contrast, Kirby's fight scenes are very expertly choreographed. They feel engaging and impactful with every hit, and each character has their own technique that they get to show off. If I can say one negative about this episode, though, it's that it has a plot point that never really gets expanded upon, and also seems to be directly retconned or contradicted by the very next episode, which we're going to talk about now. Dark and Stormy Night. Very meh. It directly conflicts with the plot point I mentioned in Kirby's Dual Role, and this makes me confused about which piece of lore to trust. I elect to trust this episode more just because of its length. It feels way more fleshed out than the one in Dual Role, which is just kind of a side note in the grand scheme of things. But I have a lot more problems than just that. The main one being, this is only the 4th episode in the series, and we already have Krako, a very prominent main boss in almost every mainline Kirby game. I really feel like they showed him off way too early. He feels wasted, especially because the ability he gives Kirby is the sword instead of Spark, which makes absolutely no sense. The only amount of sense it does make is that they didn't want to show off Spark too early, which, if that was the case, why have Krako make such an early appearance? I know it was just to further Tiff's connection to the Warp Star, but there are a bunch of other enemies that could have been used instead of him that would have worked just as well. And speaking of Tiff and Meta Knight's interactions here is more than likely the highlight of the entire episode. Everything before that was just about the chase scenes, and everything after with the Krako fight is super underwhelming. It gets a C. Beware, Wispy Woods. I love Wispy's characterization. I love the social commentary of capitalism and deforestation, especially since it becomes a recurring theme. Although, some of them don't do as good of a job as this one, admittedly. Unreality TV. Another instant S. One of very few episodes that needs no justification. It establishes a lot of the show's best moments and paves the way for so many great episodes to come. Plus, the underlying subject of propaganda and TV addiction is done expertly. Fair warning, a lot of the episodes that tackle some kind of social commentary are the best in the series. They are why I love this show so much. They are one of the best parts of the entire show. And my bias is going to come through here. I am very certain of that. Kirby's Excellent Adventure. A great time, but Dynablade is just the ugliest thing in the world ever in this first appearance of hers. I am so glad her model got better because it's just awful. Other than that, though, this episode is fine. Dynablade's lore is nice, but I honestly think the later episodes with her are just better. Really? Curio's Curious Discovery. Another thing about Right Back At Ya that I adore is the fact that it isn't afraid to establish the characters of Cappy Town. Maybe I'm in the minority. I know how much people dislike the Cappies, but these little Cappy-centric episodes are some of the best. Curio especially was a great Cappy to start with. I know this is a lot like blowboing a Mother Series NPC with only 2 lines of dialogue, but that's genuinely what it feels like. That's what the Cappies are to me. They're written in similar ways, yet they get their moments in the spotlight on occasion. They get so much embellishing and depth. The Fofa Factor. If I don't put this episode in S, I'm a dead girl. Looking at you, Mac. Besides that fact, though, this episode is still a great one. I'm just grateful that Lolo and La got an episode to themselves at all, frankly. Considering how they end up completely forgotten later in the series, that heightens this episode even more. Hail to the Chief. Very nice S, but it was a tough decision whether to put this over Curio's episode or not. The Big Taste Test. Instant S. Kawasaki, my baby girl goat, live long and prosper, you beautiful, beautiful man. Jokes aside, though, this being both the first food-centric episode, of which there are a lot, and the first Kawasaki-centric episode, it has a lot going for it. Will it be surpassed by episodes later on? Of course. But for now, this is where it lies. Escargoon Squad. Phenomenal. So much fun to watch, even when you know the twist. And for twist episodes like this, that is the highest compliment. I cannot say the same for a couple of twist episodes coming up. Happy New Year. Not anything special, really. Well, I mean, it is special because it's a New Year's celebration, but it doesn't do much with the idea outside of filling this holiday niche. I would call it the worst holiday episode of the series. That doesn't mean it's bad, though. Quite the contrary. It just falls into what I like to call worst by proxy. Not bad by any means, but everything else outclasses it, so it still ends up in last place through no fault of its own. The Pillowcase. Friday Night Death Slot. No hesitation. If you've seen it, you know why. It is just a clip show of footage from the first and sixth episodes. None of it is original, and what makes it worse is that they could have done so much more with the concept. This could have been our introduction to Nightmare and the true power that he possesses, but instead, we got this. Because the studio ran out of money and or time. That makes this episode more frustrating and sad than anything. I want this one to be good, but it's not. Kirby's pet peeve. I hate this dog. He makes me so incredibly sad. I hate it, but I love it. But I hate it. I love it. It's great. It's terrible. Emotion. A fish called Kine. I used to be so disgusted by this episode, and DeviantArt did not help whatsoever. But someone on the grapevine told me that some very important context about Kine that makes this episode bearable to watch was not made clear in the 4Kids version. And that's that Kine in the sub is a lot more juvenile and young. And by extension, Dreamland 3 also made this confusing because, you see, the issue here is that this fish in canon has a wife. I believe some very crucial information has been denied us. That aside, though, the episode playing in the background behind Kine's stupid crush is the reason why this episode remains enjoyable for me. Coral reef destruction and ocean pollution are both topics that are very personal to me, and they are what stand out more in this narrative. The thing about the ring. Instant S. Sorry, but this is just the kind of dumb fun that I absolutely adore. The whole episode is just a wild goose chase, and it is pure candy. I love Cerebrum and Ladylike's dynamic. The monster is stupid. I'm glad we got to see Doron have any kind of major role, and the entire plot of it all being a sense of pure love and devotion melts my heart. Flower power. Oh, flower power, what a hot mess you are. Viewers who have seen my tough video will know my stance on this episode better than any other, but I'll give a very brief synopsis for those out of the loop. Basically, this is an episode that would be so much better if it were way later on in the series, because it revolves entirely around a character that has had very little time in the spotlight up until this point. Good episode, horrible placement in the lineup, and for that it gets brought all the way down to a B. Here Comes the Sun. Instant S. I love Knuckle Joe, love him to death, love what they did with him, especially here. But I do think the later episodes with him are better. We'll talk about those when we get there, though. DDD's Snow Job. I am biased towards snow. I love the winter, but I'm not going to let that get to me because the other snow episode is a lot better. But this one does have a sad death. Ooh, we love that. A Princess in Distress. We love our trans mask. King? Prince? No, they don't like being royalty. I'm not sure what to call you, but you get an S regardless. I don't think much needs to be said. Please come back, dude. You were so interesting and you ended up a one-off. Many such cases, just like Island of the Lost Warrior. S. I am so in love with the story behind Ket Cosmos and what he's supposed to represent. It's something I don't want to get into for the purpose of the video analysis, sadly, but what I can say is that this soldier has 1,000 times more respect from me than any past or currently serving US soldier. It's confusing to me that I don't see more takes on his archetype, because I feel like it'd be one of those things that Japanese culture would look back on and retroactively romanticize or idolize, kind of like how we here in the West claimed witches as a symbol of female empowerment. I'm sure I'll express this point better in the analysis series, but I'm really sorry if this comes off as sensitive somehow. I'm bad at this. The Empty Nest Mess. Another worst by proxy. It's another fetch quest type episode, and I'm a big fan of the heightened stakes and danger compared to the first Dynamite episode, but I think Thing About the Ring did it better, honestly. Gotta be the weakest of the Dynamite episodes. Ninja Binge. All things considered, this one is forgettable, which makes it all the more unfortunate if you know what Yamikage's whole deal is. There's not much substance to it beyond the ninja theming. It honestly feels like a cop-out, just an excuse to get Ninja into the series. Fun excuse, I love Ninja, but it lacks identity outside of that. This is the best of the forgettable episodes, honestly. Escargoon rules. S. No introduction necessary. The only negative about this episode is the monsters, but even that doesn't have much merit because it's the very rare Dreamland 2 representation. The reversal of power dynamics and the fleshing out of Escargoon's character are so juicy to me, I love it. Hour of the Wolfwrath. A compilation of more gorgeously choreographed fight scenes, a sick-ass original monster design, and character development for two random side characters who wouldn't get any otherwise. You can't give me cake and expect me not to eat it, man. The Flower Plot. Another forgettable one. It tries to be episode 5 again and just does not have the same impact. Labor Days. 1,000 times S. Workers' rights and pollution are another set of topics that are gravely important to me. It's everything I could ever want out of an episode that covers these topics of industrialism. I cannot say enough praise about it. This is my absolute favorite episode of all time. There is no contest. Hotshot Chef or A Spice Odyssey. It has 2 names. It's better than the first Kawasaki episode, for sure. I will admit, part of why this ranks higher is for the fan service from the Toxic Atomic Curry, though I am also a big fan of the structure of the episode. This whole trading back and forth between Kawasaki and Gon, with increasingly spicier and outlandish food items. It's a treat. No pun intended. Hatch me if you can. More sadness! But this one is also just weird. I mean, I'm happy Kirby is getting more development, especially because he lacks a lot of it, but this isn't what I expected. But, who am I to judge, right? Abusement Park. Very forgettable. I even forgot how this one ended. Not a lot happens, really. I wanted more to happen. The biggest highlight is the ending with Mike. That's it. Everything else is just kind of nothing. Which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the whole thing is an amusement park, so what's up with that? A Dental Dilemma. I love Tough and Dedede's juxtaposition with each other, and the stupid story behind why this episode is in such a drastically different place in the series in the 4Kids lineup. I love telling it to people because it is the stupidest reason ever. Junk Jam. Goes at the bottom of S. It's an interesting and unique take on the common alien question. I thought there would be more references, honestly, but I'm happy with what we got. It's a lot of small things. Fire Lion, the conversation between Tiff and Tough at the beginning, the whole conversations between which of the townsfolk should be the one to actually address the issue, even though this is very clearly something that none of these people can tackle by themselves. It's a lot of fun. It's so much fun. A Recipe for Disaster. I think it has a better message than Hot Shot Chef did, but not much else beyond that. Though it is good to see Shiitake again. We have our first 2-parter with the Kirby Derby. Part 1 is very fun, even though it's 90% setup. I don't think the structure is the best here, what with the race being cut off by Part 1's end and Part 2 just being the rest of the race, but that doesn't detract from things too much. They get an A. Watermelon Felon. Another social commentary episode, this time a look at corrupt justice systems, televised criminal propaganda, and the power of good local press. It's a very good topic to tackle, and I'm very glad it was done as well as it was. Also, the scene between Tiff and Meta Knight, my fucking beloved. A Novel Approach. I have a special place for this one. This is the Turf episode. And because J.K. Rowling has gone on record as a horrific and terrible person in the last 5 years, that number may be incorrect, this episode has both aged incredibly poorly and incredibly well at the same time. Poorly because it paints a renowned transphobe in a positive light, though hindsight is 2020, and well because the mimic fake ended up being a more realistic depiction than the real version of the character. And Right Back At You does this twice, actually. S-Car gone. I haven't seen a lot of media that tackles this trope of everyone suddenly forgetting that you exist. However, I am a very big fan of the concept as a sort of case study. Plop a character in this scenario and see how they react. It's always fun to see. The only thing I don't like is the ending. It irks me in a way I can't describe. Maybe it's the fact that this harrowing nightmare scenario is played for laughs and as a gotcha right at the end that never gets resolved. Monster management. Instant S. Well, I'm saying that about a lot of these, I know this, but this one deserves it. Absolute cinema. I have never seen something more raw in emotion from this era. Fun tangent. When I was watching this show again with my friends, I suddenly found myself in a, quote, those who know situation. I knew the twist, but they didn't. And I got to see a live, first-hand reaction to Knuckle Joe's betrayal. I'll show screenshots if I can. And I had the biggest shit-eating grin on my face the whole time. It was great. And the fact that I can still feel the impact, even when I know what the twist is, speaks to just how good it is. Also, Knuckle Joe is killing it in that spiffy-ass suit. You cannot deny this. Another two-parter, Prediction Predicament. The first of a few Mabel and Samo-centric episodes, which is another pairing that I absolutely adore. Honestly, I'm paying more attention to that than I am to the stuff surrounding DDD's Nightmare. But that's just part one. Part two is where everything gets good. It's another case study type episode where we just plop these beloved characters into a real doomsday type scenario and ask how they'd react to the end of the world. It's a great question to ask, and it always brings out some gut-wrenching emotional beats. It's one of those bittersweet things. I have a problem with this episode, but I'm choosing to omit it from this list to save my analytical bacon in the future. Sheepwrecked. I'm gonna admit, I didn't care for this one at all until my friend realized that this was entirely based on a movie I had never seen before. The entire plot point about the monstrous sheep that wants to become a wolf is ripped from the 1978 Japanese film Ringing Bell. The film was produced by Sanrio, and I can only assume that this is the only reason why my friend knew about this. Before this revelation, I thought it was only about The Boy Who Cried Wolf parallels, which never really interested me, being such an old fable. But after this, I have way more respect, and I say it deserves an S rank. War of the Woods. I don't know what to say about this one. It just barely crosses the line into being forgettable. The last half is where things truly shine. Everything before that is just kind of meh. Scare Tactics. The best holiday episode bar none. And I promise you that a lot of that does not come from the fact that it's a two-parter. Part one is the weaker of the two, but it's still loads of scary fun. I imagine it was a lot of fun for the kiddos. But part two is just nothing but horror references. The Psycho reference, the Blair Witch Project reference, possibly more too that I can't think of. It's a cavalcade. And as a massive horror fan, it's so nice to see. Pink Collar Blues. The worst of all the social commentary episodes. But that again is a worst by proxy association. It's meant to be another commentary on workers' rights, more specifically the replacement of jobs by machines or AI, but it winds up weaker than previous and future tacklings of this issue, especially because the Waddle Dee focus is repeated in a different episode, making this one kinda retroactively pointless. And on another note, the whole robots taking jobs conflict wasn't even that big of an issue, I feel like. I didn't hear most people talking about that beyond the month that it was all over the news. It was really more of a fad. Waddle Doo is great, though. I'm not going to go by without mentioning him. Tourist Trap. Once more under the bridge. I think the message for this one is a little misguided. I get what was trying to be conveyed, that certain tourists are disrespectful of landmarks and are rude and demanding and ask for too much, and that is a very valid concern. However, I think it's just a bit too generalized. It would really have been beneficial if some of the tourists held back from being such awful people and, were normal and civilized, because not all tourists are like this. I also would have liked to see a more varied look at the places around Cappytown instead of the same few landmarks we've seen dozens of times now. The episode is all about tourism, yet it never feels like we're going anywhere new, which is just a lot of missed potential and unfortunate. Don't bank on it. More dumb fun. The whole idea of the hypnotic dolls is just so stupid. The whole scheme is stupid. The reason for Didi's defeat is stupid. The ending is stupid, and I am saying none of this negatively. Kirby takes the cake. Oh, this one. This one pains me a lot. Actually, no, I'm not putting it in A. But unlike Monster Management, the impact isn't as strong here. Probably because it's not really so much sad as it just really makes me mad. Fucking Takori. It's another exercise in patience, like I said in my tough video about episode 18. But along with this patience exercise, it's wrapped up in a volley of very intense emotions. It's a push and pull. It takes you from being sad to being angry to being happy to being so happy you could cry. Snack attack. Very bottom of S. This one is more like Kirby Derby, where the setup is all in the first episode, and then the second episode is where all the action happens. But the action of part 2 isn't really meaningful. And that's mostly a byproduct of the Monster of the Week format that Right Back At Ya has, which, by that very nature, isn't a factor I can push on these episodes specifically. The first part is better, though, because it's all the fun character filler. I can't say much else, though, because, these products are illegal in my country. One Crazy Night. I have so much respect for this one, largely for the same reasons as Sheepwrecked, except this was a reference I understood. I never knew too much about the story of Don Quixote, but I was familiar enough with the tale to recognize that this was a reference. However, the episode doesn't really have its own identity outside of it being a parody. It's a non sequitur, only really saved by Mirror, because Mirror is the GOAT. Sweet and Sour Puss. It's everything us hardcore changed or reformed DDD fans wanted that we only got superficially. This stings more when you come back to this after his arc in episodes later on. DDD's Pet Threat. It's a commentary on animal cruelty, neglect, and abuse, which is great. I love that this is a topic. I'm not sure how I feel about it being done to Scarfies, though. Because, anyone who's played Kirby oh wait, I realize this defeats my entire argument. Well, a half-baked battle. This one took me a bit. It's more stupid fun, but the brunt of the conflict with Bellybuster is kinda gross. Fitting, because the pies also taste like ass, but unnecessary. Enemy Elementary. The first of 3 school episodes, and this is, again, worst by proxy. I just think future episodes did more with this concept than the first foray. However, it is still fantastic. If you want my take on it, I think it should have been a broader critique about corrupt school systems, rather than just kind of saying teacher bad and justifying it with a monster. The Meal Moocher. The plot itself doesn't have much substance, but it doesn't need that to be engaging. And this is a perfect example of that. No other notes. Cartoon Buffoon. If I don't put this in S, I'm going to be murdered in my sleep. It is not better than Labor Days, but it is a very close third. Yes, I said third. Everyone holds this episode to such high acclaim, and that is for very good reason. Critique of the animation process, the roles of a studio, how executives have way too much control over the project to the point that it saps all the soul and deeper meaning out of it and ruins the entire purpose. One of the best episodes ever. The Reanimated collab cemented its place in history as the most recognized episode of the series. This is the one that everyone comes back to. This is the one everyone talks about. It's impossible to get away from it. And it's great. Crusade for the Blade goes right above Cartoon Buffoon because I think it's better. It's another episode full of phenomenally choreographed fight scenes, and not to mention Sirika, the best and most interesting one-off character, though not my personal favorite, Fitness Fiend. Fitness Fiend is gross. I need not say any more. If anything, this episode makes me want to work out less. Mabel turns the tables. It's great. More Mabel Samo dynamic, more tough action, but I've sung enough praise about him lately. And the whole idea surrounding Mabel's increased idolization by the other villagers of Cappytown, it's a fascinating story. I really do think it is, and I'm not letting the religious parallels go swept under the rug. Something to sneeze at. I don't remember much about this one, probably because not a lot happens. But what does happen is pretty funny. The Kirby quiz. Very high S, but not enough to dethrone the current top 3. This is the culmination of Ryback Edge's tendency to lovingly jab at the audience, and I love it for that. It's nothing but good fun. Ignore how impossible it is that Enemy has all the footage that they do. Masher 2.0. Great closure for Knuckle Joe's arc. I love Joe's relationship with Tiff, and Masher's new design looks so cool, but it can't compete with Monster Management. That emotional roller coaster is a tall order to dethrone. The chill factor. Better than Snow Job, even without a lovable side character death, but it makes up for that with a better fight scene and those stupid Pengy costumes. They are so cute and stupid, and I want one. The School Scam. I would have had a lot more to say on School Scam in my TIFF essay if YouTube's bullshit content ID didn't fuck me over. Now I get to say what I couldn't back then. Her speech at the end is the most lovingly written display of weakness and strength. Everyone around her recognizes that she just did something super badass and cool and strong, but she knows that it came from a place of weakness. It's one of the most guttural things ever, and I can't talk about it any more than just that for right now. I'm so sorry. Delivery Dilemma. Another forgettable one. However, I do enjoy that it gives us very much needed Kirby character growth. Trick or Trek. If one more person uses this episode as a reason to complain about Tiff, I am going to strangle a bit. Buccaneer Birdie. I adore the mystery elements. I wish we got more of that. You thought I was going to say I hate this episode because it's all about Tori. No. I have more self-respect than that. Waddle while you work. This is the slavery one. This is what I was referring to before with Pink Collar Blues. This episode does everything that episode was trying to do, but better. A Whale of a Tale. Somewhat forgettable, mostly because the themes of ocean pollution and animal cruelty had already been tackled by the Kine and Scarfy episodes previously. This episode is a lot all at once, having a struggle for its own identity. It did everything okay though. It's not a bad episode by any means. It just treads on old ground a little bit too much. DDD's Raw Deal. Not the best food episode. The problem is the premise being lost on American culture. The sweet potato is great to see though. Caterpillar Thriller. I didn't get the reference, but that doesn't hamper the experience for me. It was just kind of weird and hard to follow. Fossil Fools. Ooh, Fossil Fools. Jurassic Park nerds, rise up. So many fun parody bits. The reference to Dr. Moreau is neat. The dinosaurs are so stupid, and they make the cast say the dumbest shit. Also, the first appearance of Crash. DDD's Monster Piece. As an artist, of course I'm going to like this one a lot. Paint Roller, please come back. But beside that, there's also the fun story about the last minute of the dub being lost media. I love lost media, and I love telling people about it. Right Hand Robot. This is the episode that finally captures the fraught relationship between Tiff and Escargoon, which is a dynamic I love and think is severely underappreciated. And this episode also tackles the abuse that Escargoon faces from DDD in a much more tasteful way than an episode that we'll see later. Going bonkers. Bonkers seems like a weird choice to me at first to have an entire episode based around him, but I enjoyed my time with him. Love the King Kong spoof. And, you know, he's just funny in general. He's a funny monkey. I only have one issue, and that is the shtick of him watching right back at you in-universe, and that being what inspires him to become a Star Warrior. I think this whole trope is dumb and convoluted. This isn't the worst that the trope can get, but I'm still not fond of it. And that's why it gets an A. Power ploy. The birthplace of dozens of incredibly cursed images. It needs no other introduction. A trashy tale. I've talked this episode to death already in both my essays on the Ibram siblings, a lot more than I thought I ever would, which has given me a sort of unique relationship with it because of that. But as far as my actual stance on it goes, I mean, it's alright. The fight with Trash Basher is kind of lame, but it's cool to see cleaning in an episode that isn't a novel approach, and for that it gets an A. Cooking up trouble. Finally, we get to the commentary on gender roles. I know that plot point takes a bit of a back seat for most of the episode, but that's what this is at the end of the day. The actual conflict with the cooking machines and everything is nice too. Teacher's threat. The second best school episode carried directly to the top because of Mr. Chip. He is the second best one-off character behind Sirica because his actions are morally ambiguous. His whole arc and reasoning is one big question that the writers dare you to ask and attempt to solve, which is one of my favorite things to do with characters. And he's a book reference too. I can't say much more on that though because we gotta talk about this later. Mumby's Madness. Forgettable. One of only 2 episodes that ends up in D tier because nothing happens. The biggest highlight is Tough breaking into Curio's house. Everything else is just Kirby being chased around town. And frankly, that's not enough. A sensational puzzle. Hello, more Cerebrum ladylike fleshing out. Hello, social commentary about climate change. And along with both of those, it's another case study type episode. So much fun. A Chow challenge. Oh my god, these bitches gay. Good for them. Good for them. As much as I love Chef Nagoya, though, it's structured in a way that I think has been done plenty of times already to admittedly much greater success. It's not as good as some other food episodes, but far from the worst. Waste management. What a fantastic reference to one of the greatest motion pictures made in our time, Birdemic. Outside of the reference, though, I don't have much to say about this. It's another commentary episode, but it's treading on old ground. Old ground had just walked another, let me see here, 6 episodes ago. But this one has enough originality to prevent it from being lost at sea. Shell-shocked. No. Tuned out. No. We don't talk about you. Born to be Mild, the very last 2-parter. A 2-part biopic for Gus and Melman. This, right here, is the logical final evolution for this episodic style. And just because of this, it makes both parts a joy to experience time and time again. This is the best 2-parter of the entire series by those merits alone. Yes, it treads on old ground again, but it has enough original story beats to make it stand out, which is the best way to do something like this. Hungerstruck. Meh. Entirely meh. All this episode really did was give us the insane visual for how Waddle Dees eat. It has no impact beyond that. Plus, the monster's voice is just... it is just nails on chalkboard. Depreciation Day. This deeply irks me, because I wanted DDD to have a change of heart, like he does in the main games. And we're shown that he has that capability here, but he goes right back to being his old self in the next episode, like nothing happened. deeply unfortunate. Cowardly creature. Fan is cute, but it's not enough to make this episode memorable. Frog Wild. Cultural icon. To the point where I'm just a little tired of seeing it referenced in fan works. Just a little. I know that's a hot take. However, I can't say anything else negative about you. You are still a treat of a case study episode. One thing that confuses me, though, is the frog. Nintendo has a weird relationship with frogs. They start the timer countdown in Wario Land 4. They're how you save the game in Mother 3. They're the worst boss fight ever. It's weird. But that's okay. Fight to the finish. Or, well, excuse me. Air Ride in Style Parts 1 and 2, Cappytown Down, Combat Kirby, and Fright to the Finish. The 5-part movie. This one's a doozy, so buckle up. In total, the whole thing is going in S, but it's not at the very top. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion because it is a great movie. It does everything you'd want for a finale. It brings emotion, it brings back one-off characters, it's got action, it's got small filler bits with neat character interaction, and it brings in a handful of weirdness. This is right back at you at some of its best. But the whole is only as good as its parts, and there are some parts that I have issues with. The filler could have been expanded, especially in Combat Kirby. I want to see more of that. And I will have to talk about how the ending was rushed and thus why Nightmare's death feels so anticlimactic, but that is a topic for another time. And that makes this my finalized tier list. In total, 56 episodes ended up in S tier. Over half the series at the tippy top. That says a lot. What that says, that's on you. 24 episodes ended up in A tier. Still a sizable portion of the series in good graces. 8 episodes ended up in B tier. Only a handful of mid. Better than I thought. 5 episodes ended up in C tier. Most of which are the forgettable lot. This should have just been called the forgettable tier, honestly. 2 episodes ended up in D tier, and 2 episodes ended up in F tier. Only 4 real stinkers. No, there's nothing below F. What do you want about? Oh, and in case you're wondering where I put the 3D 101st episode, it's just more of the same, really. No one talks about it beyond Tiff's incredibly cursed line and the weird kabuki thing. It would, I don't know, put it in B somewhere. Thanks for watching this little intermediate video. This channel is going to be going places pretty soon, so I wanted to bulk up my numbers just a tiny bit more before I go all out on this next project of mine. I hope you'll tune in for that when the first episode drops. Yeah, I know, real short end card spiel. I guess I'll use this time to ask you guys another important question. Should I make a Patreon? I've heard so much negative about them, so I've been hesitant, but I really want a more direct support link for what I do other than my Bandcamp. Please tell me how great or horrible an idea that would be in the comments. I'm really curious.